Hey everybody, what's going on? So today I want to share with you a quick video, hopefully because my hand is getting tired really quickly from holding my phone, on how to not suck in information security. This is my three-step framework that I learned when I went through a sort of a stale period. So I went through this period where I don't know if you want to call it like lost a little bit of passion towards information security. And I went through this phase where I wasn't really interested anymore in what I was doing. And I started losing my skill and I started losing my interest. But luckily, I managed to turn this around somehow. And throughout this process or throughout this period, that is, I learned what it takes to really suck at what you do in information security. So I wanted to share this with you. So hopefully you don't suck at information security. The process or the framework is pretty simple. It's three steps really. Learn, do, teach. And if you skip any of these steps, you are pretty much certain to suck at what you do in information security. Let me elaborate. Let's start with the first one, learn. So we talked about how to learn in other videos, how to choose a topic that you might be interested in or passionate about, how much do you need to commit to it, and what kind of learning do you need to do, how often do you need to work on it, and so on. So I'm not going to dwell on this and repeat it in this video. What I want to share with you is what happens if you skip this process, if you don't learn and just jump straight into doing. So what's going to happen is a couple things. When you don't really get into the learning, when you don't go beneath the surface of the learnings that you get at school or at university or at any training, what's going to happen is that fairly quickly, it's going to be pretty obvious that you really don't know what you're talking about. And that's going to be evident in a lot of situations. Let's take a couple examples. One is when you are being challenged by a customer. So let's say you're doing a pen test and you learned the basics of how you do a pen test. You do a port scan, you do a vulnerability scan, you try to exploit a few exploits using a few vulnerabilities, that is, using Metasploit or whatever. Some things work out, some things don't, and you provide a report, you submit a report to your customer. And the customer comes and challenges you and says, you know what, I think this is a false positive, or I don't think the criticality of this is correct, or I don't think this is accurate. And if you don't know what you're talking about, if you haven't dug a little bit beneath the surface of the basic learning, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to be in hot water and you're not going to be able to sort of defend your point of view or defend your findings. Same thing happens if you are sitting for an interview, let's say, and you passed a few certificates, you've memorized certain tools, you've memorized certain commands, and you got a little bit lucky and you managed to pass a certificate. And I've seen this happen. You sit for an interview and the interviewer tries to, scratch a little bit beneath the surface of what you've done. And they ask you a few questions on why did you choose this tool? What about that other tool? Why did you run this command? Not that command. And you don't know what to answer. You don't know what to say. So it's going to be fairly evident that you don't know what you're talking about. So the first step is learn. If you don't learn, you are going to find yourself in hot water with your customer, with your manager, in an interview process. So you really definitely don't want to be skipping that process. You want to go deeper than what you are being provided at school, at university, and a 2-day training or a 4-day training. The second step is do. So once you learn whatever it is that you want to learn and you're happy with your learning, you want to go and practice it. You want to roll up your sleeve, get your hands dirty and practice what it is that you're learning. And if you don't do that, again, a few things are going to happen. One, which is extremely important, is that you're not going to get a proper appreciation to what you're learning. Let me give you an example. So when I started my career as a pen tester, the first couple of years of my pen testing, I thought that was the best discipline in information security. Nothing else compares to it. That's the absolute best thing that you can do. And I didn't have an appreciation to other disciplines like risk management, incident response, forensics, etc. It's a little bit shameful to admit this, but I did have a little bit of ego about being a pen tester, and I didn't really appreciate what others do in their disciplines until I got in a situation where I had to do it myself, where I had to learn how to do risk management, risk assessment, when I had to learn how to do incident response. And that pushed me to get a much, much deeper appreciation to what others do and to what the discipline is all about. Because when you don't really do something, you're going to think, it's really easy. Like take a basic example. let's go away from information security for a little bit. If you are trying any sports, and I've tried quite a few sports growing up, and I used to like things like, for example, parkour, skateboarding, a little bit of martial arts. What I would see very commonly is that everybody wants to get into doing the tricks, the fancy stuff, the fancy tricks very early on. They want to do the kick flip or the back flip or whatever flip it is that they want to do before they learn the basics. But how do you really learn the basics? It's by doing them and by mastering them. And if you don't do that, you're going to fall and hurt yourself fairly quickly. So don't skip this step. Don't skip the doing. Don't skip the practicing, because one, this is going to give you an appreciation. And two, when you do something, this is when you really learn what is that you're trying to learn. You think that you know, you think that you've learned, but you haven't until you tried it. Here's the thing. If you want to learn how to drive, you want to learn how to swim, you could read a million books on swimming or on driving, but unless you get behind a wheel or jump in a pool, you're not going to learn how to swim. Look, I'm recording this video. I just parked my bike on the side of the road because I saw this really nice view behind me. I thought, you know what, let me get on the sidewalk and just record this video. So I've been riding for about 20 years or so, and I still read books on how to ride. I still watch videos on how to ride. I still watch trainings on how to ride. This is how you improve. If you learn something new, you go and do it, you realize that, you know what, I don't know it as much as I thought I do. So you practice more. Once you get comfortable with it, you pick up another training, more advanced book, and you practice a little bit more. And this is how we grow your skill. And this is what happened to me, by the way, when things got a little bit stale. What happened is that I got to a certain stage where I thought, I know pretty much everything that I need to know about pen testing. It's a really stupid, dumb thing to say, and I know, but I was much younger and much more naive. But it happened. And this is when I started getting bored and things started getting a little bit uninteresting to me, because I wasn't learning more, I wasn't practicing more, I wasn't growing my skill set. So this you need to be very wary of. That's number two. The third one and the last one is teach. And this one I have to credit my dear dad for this. That's something that he's instilled in me ever since I can remember. He's always said, if you want to master something, truly master something, you have to teach it. And I'm not saying here like a classroom teaching style. You really don't have to get in a classroom and teach. It could be anything, like, putting your thoughts in a blog post, in a video. It doesn't matter if somebody watches it or not, because what's going to happen is when you try to teach something, you're forcing yourself to get deeper into it. Because what's going to happen subconsciously is that you're going to be thinking to yourself, what if somebody asks me a question about this topic or that topic? You do not allow yourself anymore to just glaze over something. You force yourself to understand it on a much deeper, better level, because you're worried maybe somebody is going to be asking you about it and you need to be able to answer that question. Or at least this is what happens to me, right? And the other thing that's going to happen is, if you don't teach, you're denying yourself from the opportunity of really instilling that information and cementing it in an organized manner. When you learn something, again, you think that you understand it. You do it, you think that you understand it. But when you try to teach it, this is when you're really forced to understand it. I'll give you an example. I invited once a training that does happen regularly at Black Hats. I invited them over to Dubai to train. And a couple of trainers showed up, very nice people, loved them to bits. They were still a little bit young, a little bit unexperienced back then. And this happened in the classroom. It was a basic pen testing training. So one of the students asked, what's a payload? They were talking about payloads. And the student asked, what's a payload? And the trainer never thought of this before. They thought they knew what a payload is, but they couldn't explain it. And the answer was, well, a payload is a payload, right? Not the most satisfying answer to students, but this happens because they didn't force themselves to teach properly and understand properly. So here it is. If you don't want to suck at information security, there are 3 things that you need to do and not skip any of these 3 things. The first is learn. And I'm talking here at scratching beyond the surface, going beyond the surface and the basics of what you learn at university, at school, in a book or a training. Two, you want to do, you want to practice, you want to make sure that you're practicing. And the more you practice, the more you're going to learn and advance yourself with more advanced books. And three is teach. Make sure that you go and teach, not only because you're going to better understand what it is that you're teaching and learning, but you're also going to be helping others and helping the cybersecurity community. So that's it from me. I'm going to get back on my bike, continue my ride, and I will see you soon on another video.